if you want to talk about development, packet of cement, I don't know how heavy that is, like to build the house and all. Outside, again, it's about 30 ringgit. But when you bring it inside, it's 70 ringgit. Because the guy said, look, like my car will get stuck. If I get stuck, I have to stay overnight in the road, etc., etc. If you want it, pay rent. Right? So, but once we bring the road, we will equalize the cost, and we will actually start to bring in the development. So, I mean, after a while, we think, look, this is actually quite real. We are potentially bringing changes into the life of these people. Project Azhar, this is actually another very, very interesting project. It was actually a little bit during the election. So the way I see it, like Alex will tell you that we are not politicians, but the way I see it is, we will try to use the politicians, because the politicians have to do their campaigning. Politicians will use us as well. Right? They'll say, oh, these people are doing all these projects because of me. They go to their constituents and say, no, all these projects, me. I was the one who got it for you. But at the same time, because we need it implemented, the politicians have the real power to give the order. So what happened is that we went to this house. This actually house was about 30 kilometers outside of Kuching, right? Azhar is actually a little girl. I think she's like 5 to 6 years old. Right? When we went there, I didn't go there, so my colleagues tell me, right? When we went there, her mom was feeding the girl. I mean, she's a really poor person, right? And they were eating sea rice. I don't know how it is, but basically they were saying that this rice must have been at least been there in the water 2-3 days, right? And if you go and look into the house is not horizontal. The house is tenggelam like that. Right? It's going to like fall off. And then in the kitchen, where the kids, not in the kitchen, but in the bathroom where the kids bathe, half the floor is gone. And this is actually a kampong house, so it's on stilts, right? So if the kid is not careful when they're bathing or when they're doing the business, they'll slide right into where the business goes. Right? So, and actually in this thing, because like the politicians were there, we managed to corner the minister. In this case, this is a very nice minister, Shafi Abdul. Right? He says, look, these people deserve it. Let's give them the money to build a new house. 40,000 is limited. Right? So again, real impact on the life of people. Nanda Lawe. This is another really, really interesting one. I mean, I went into this place, first time I did a helicopter ride, so excited about this. Right? Riding on the helicopter, and then taking pictures, showing off my friends, etc., etc. Right? But when you're on top in the air, you look into this city, right? It's in the middle of a valley, and four sides of this, in the four sides of this valley is just huge mountain cliffs, and greens. There is no roads. There's a small stream of river. So when it is not in the summer, not in the dry season, people can actually get in. But otherwise, this is totally secluded. Again, this RBI project allows us to bring water supply in there. It allows us to put in a generator in there. It allows the children in the school to start accessing internet. So this is actually, if I'm not wrong, 5,000 Iman people, including 1,000 plus kids. Pulau Seduku, another similar story. These people live in an island in the middle of the Sarawak River. It's infested with crocodile. We took all of them, 500 of them, moved them into the mainland and give them houses. So to me, I mean, look, sometimes if you just look at what's in the papers and we're trying to change it, it's just numbers. Right? But actually, now I'm actually quite motivated, quite passionate, excited about this, because in this thing, I actually get to see the people whose lives, I somehow manage to change. And I think that's meaningful to me because my uncle, one uncle which I really respect, he's actually a missionary. And I see him spend 10 years of his life trying to change the life of, one village, which is, 50 people. Right? Because through this program, we reach out to close to 5,000 villages. I don't remember the numbers wrongly. Right? And the number of people that we helped, in the previous child was actually more than 2 million people, just in 1 year itself. Right? I guess, if I can maybe just quickly end with this. Right? Since I'm talking to youth, right? This is my spectrum, right? Again, I said, we invite feedback, we invite, ideas, criticism, but I got this spectrum which I was thinking for a while, and I'd like to share this with you. Right? The problem, and actually I learned this a little bit when I was watching West Wing. It was kind of my favorite TV drama for a while. West Wing, like the TV drama where it talks about, the White House and the US president and his chief of staff, etc., etc. Right? He says the biggest problem with, and he says American, but I'll say actually a lot of even Malaysian, right? Malaysian youths is a problem of apathy. I don't care what is happening. Nothing is going to change anyway. Nothing is going to matter anyway. I don't care whether it's Najib or Anwar. I don't care. No, we're not discussing that. But to me, what's happening doesn't concern me. Or actually even worse, a lot of people sometimes, I find myself as well, I don't know what's happening. I don't know what GDP is, or I don't know what the government is trying to do. I don't know what is the, what this party is trying to bring, what that is trying to bring. So I guess one thing is, like, try not to be on this end of the spectrum, where you don't know what is happening, or you don't care about what is happening, right? Try to move towards this end where you're starting to get knowledge, you know what's happening, and you are there when the decision takes place. I guess in politics terms, this will mean that, you vote, but it doesn't matter. But, one thing, there's a quote which I really like, it says, like, decision is made by those who show up. Just show up, right? Just be there, right? Know what's happening, and and be there. And this is where I hope that like we will aspire to be really, where we start to understand what it is, and we start to challenge people, and we start to basically hopefully inspire the people to I don't know what to do. Right. So I think this is where I end my presentation.
Eugene, can we go straight to questions from the floor? Anyone to comment on what they saw, what they feel should be done, where you think this is going?
Good evening. I think it's very commendable what you guys are doing. But something really troubles me. The whole piping situation is now with the water coming from one end to another. And you say it doesn't work because there's apparently the way it works differently in Sarawak and so forth. How come you guys don't hire feasibility experts and put all that in place first? Why don't you get someone to say, yes, this project is feasible, these are the problems that we're having, instead of going straight to the project and say, okay, we'll put pipes all over the place. Whether it works or not, that's another story. Why is it for a lot of projects in this country, or maybe even at international level, these feasibility projects don't seem to be in place first before you actually start the project? So that's my question. Thank you.
That's a tough question to answer, but my own view is this, right? I don't think we want to fall in either end of the spectrum. Right? On one end of the spectrum, you are debating and debating. You're saying, let's lay the pipe, let's not lay the pipe. Let's lay the pipe, let's not lay the pipe. Like a KSU will come and say lay the pipe, the minister will say no. Like the deputy minister will say yes, like then you say no. So then you are just debating and before you know it, a year has passed. Right? So that's one end of the spectrum. You are so worried about the analysis that you're actually not going down the implementation route. And actually, to be honest with you, I worry in Malaysia a lot of things like that. Right? Whilst you're right, on the other end of the spectrum, like we go in, we are a big gung-ho about doing things, and we may not have thought through everything correctly. Right? Now, I don't have a real answer to you, to be honest with you. I mean, there is a set process in terms of doing that. I think, like what happened with some of the experts screwed up somewhere. Right? The consultants who are advising us on it did not see this problem, right? And I guess we screwed up as well because we didn't test it enough, right? But I guess what I'm hoping to say is that hopefully in the many projects that we do, only a small amount of these projects are really will happen like that. Or where there's a screw up like that, right? And of course it doesn't mean that that gives us the right to screw up. I think that also just means that look, we recognize the fact that sometimes you will make mistakes, right? Let's just be honest about it, admit it, and hopefully the next year you don't make the same mistake. So I guess I don't have a real answer for you.
Please state your name and organization.
Okay, I'm Husaini Abdul Karim. I'm a writer and an entrepreneur. My blog is HK by my blogspot. I have a few things here. What you have discussed just now, one is corruption. You talk about the size of the fish, and so on. I just want to mention the last guy who died was an assistant director of customs. Okay, we don't know how he died. Was it homicide or was it suicide? We don't know. And after Teo Beng Hong is the second fellow. But if I'm not wrong, if you take into consideration Sarawak and Sabah, there are actually 7 people who died the same way, all MECC cases. Okay, fine. So the point is, after the customs officer died, before that, there were a lot of hoo-ha about customs officers taking money and so on. Then after that fellow died, suddenly everything is quiet. Until today, we don't know what happened. Okay? So we want you to tell us what's actually happening. And when, what... Okay, I like the laughter. Okay, they like it. So they're waiting for your answer. Okay, the next one is on education. You mentioned rightly education. I like the way the Koreans do things, but the way we do things, we seem not to look at our own people. We have a lot of experts here, and until now we cannot decide whether we want to teach in English or whether we want to teach in Malay. I am pro-English, of course, and I've been writing in the paper so many times in the past 5 years. You issue Sani Abdul Karim Shalam, that's me, on education, and in MOE do it. But yeah, hang on. It's by chance, huh? Yeah, they will have a chance, don't worry. So, when we see the Minister of Education also, the PM, the last thing he did was, the most recent thing he did was to meet the UNESCO DG, Irina Bokova. And then suddenly he came back and let's have English lessons on Sundays. And because Irina Bokova said, it's better for you to teach in your own native language. But before that, the PM has said we are reconsidering to use PPSMI, but no decision has been made yet. And there were a lot of people who write. Many are writing for English, but not many are writing for Bahasa. The last guy who write for Bahasa talked about patriotism and Shikanataro. Remember that professor? Okay. And then crime. You said you have redeployed the people, and you have 280 people on those hotspots, but you still cannot catch the splasher. Yes. 280 people cannot catch the splasher. What are these 280 people doing? And the next thing, this is something I have been. Well, just last one. The last one, last point. Globalization. Is
Just
the
question.
last one? Question. Globalization. The PM, the previous PM, even Mahathir was talking about globalization. SMEs, please go outside and sell your wares. See, there are 14 ministries and 64 agencies, all with money to give entrepreneurs if they qualify. But you try and tell these 14 ministries and 64 agencies that you want to sell your products or services to the US, you know what they tell you? FO. Thank you very much.
I remember you now. We met, I think, about a year plus ago. Yeah. No, I'll try and answer your statements and your questions. But most likely, I'll probably end up like Eugene not answering the gentleman's question. Now, on corruption, you said that what's happening with the custom officer's case. Now, I'm not sure whether you're referring to the case on why he died or the 62 people that were charged. Now, as far as the 62 people are charged, and I'm not here representing MECC, I'm here to just tell you all that what PEMANDU knows about it, yeah, and this is the most that I can say about it. As far as the charges are concerned, it's under investigation, and as you know, 62 people. He's laughing at me now. 62 people being charged requires a lot of due diligence work, yeah. As far as the deceased, now again, that's a very difficult question to answer. What happened to him? Only he knows what happened to him. And I don't think MECC even can even provide an answer, because he was alone in the room, per se. Yeah. So what happened then happened. It's unfortunate. I mean, for us, when I got the SMS, it was disbelief for me as well. And just like all of you, if you were working and you were in my shoes, and you're working as the comms director for a government transformation program, and then you get an SMS like that, I will not use FO, I will use FML, and most of you will understand. And I was like, what am I going to say? Or how am I going to, put this together, or answer this, or even begin to even address this, because as a whole, all of you know, MECC, give them benefit of the doubt. They are trying their best. They are trying to do a lot of things. They are trying to make improvements within the agency. And I think they have done so by leaps and bounds.